So in 2013, I made the mistake of talking to Lena Struble, who goes by Lena Grant now. She is the daughter of one James Conrad Struble from Prineville, Oregon. And yes, his birthday is March 31st, 1960. Um, since then, I've had nothing but problems with James, and I didn't find out how bad it was until about 2 years ago when I moved into this lovely apartment that I live in. I've had nothing but problems with James ever since. Because he says, I moved into his neighborhood. I did this, I did that. I talked to his daughter out of turn. He says, I did this to his wife. I did this to him. I did this to both of his daughters. Now he's got other people saying that I did it to their families. Yeah, all that for $20 and a load in their backside. Wow, impressive, isn't it? He goes to whoever he thinks he can get to bend to his will. He will take things that make people bend to their will. He will plant suggestions and make other people go for it. And he'll sit back and laugh and watch. Right now, he's under the house listening. That's correct. Below my apartment. He's got his number 2 and his poop streak next to him. Whoever poop streak is, we don't know, but we know it's a female. Number 2, don't know who that is, but I do know who butt clown is. And that is putting it politely. So yeah. I have a bed that moves on its own. I have furniture with movement in them. The seats in my car have movement in them. And people say, why don't you call law enforcement? Well, guess what? Law enforcement won't do anything because James is a rat. That's right. James is an informant that won't give up the information they want unless they do what he wants them to do. So he's got a handler that does, and she even takes a load in her ass too. That's what he says. So I don't know. He says he's had to do things to protect his family because of things he's done when he's high. I think he does it just because he's a jackass. But that's just my opinion. But yes, this would be the James Conrad Struble who does construction work. So if he's worked on your house, I'd go looking in your walls to see if you have extras. He has what he calls pans in the walls. And there's registers that open up into them, and those registers actually just fold open and things fall out. He's got a son-in-law who's in construction. I don't know who the other son-in-law is. I just know that his name is Adam. That would be an Adam Wayne Grant. And that is married to Lena. Lena's the only one I've ever met, and I only ever talked to her for a max of 45 minutes, if that. On his front porch while he was home, and he could have come out and said, no, you need to leave, and he chose not to. So that was an instant setup. Now, there's the address to where I supposedly owe him money. I don't owe him shit. He tells everybody that I owe him $8,000. But I don't owe him anything. I've never purchased anything. I've never fronted anything from him. The only people I ever fronted from were friends. People that I knew that would wait until I had the cash or would trade. So the only street debt, according to him, that I have is samples I was given to try of edibles and some bud years ago. That was all paid for. Bought and paid for. But it was a couple of samples that I was given of Starburst and toffee or caramel or whatever the fuck you want to call it, because it never really fully set up. So it was gooey like caramel, even though it was supposed to be toffee. Really good stuff. Very effective. But, yeah, according to him, I'm only 51 years old, and he is 62, going on 63. We share the same birthday. I was born in 71. He was born in 60. He was born in Prineville. I was born in Salem, Oregon. But yet he says I'm an ex-girlfriend, or that I did this or that I did that. I hurt his wife. I hurt his daughters. I hurt everybody. Now he's got somebody else on board stating that I do that to people in my neighborhood. I never had problems with any of my neighbors until I moved here. None of them. I get accused of this. I get accused of that. I have a grandmother who, so what? Back in the day when she was still having kids and her kids were starting to have kids, she inherited a dairy from her family in frickin' Norway. But she had to pack her family up and go to Norway to get it. She chose not to go. She chose to stay here. Okay, well, that was my great-grandmother. Yeah. I have family members with all kinds of different last names. I have family members in all walks of life. I have friends in all walks of life. I have people I haven't talked to in many, many years. But yet I get accused of this and I get accused of that. And it's like, dude, grow up. I'm not even capable of doing that kind of shit. Some of the things you accuse me of are things that have been done to me. Why would I enact that kind of crap out on somebody else? It's just disgusting. It just proves how much of a sick person you really are. You and your followers. That's why we call you the James Gang Occult. Because that's it. That's all you are, is an occult. You have all these people that follow you because they think you're who? The Red. There is no such thing as the Red other than you calling yourself that. And the only reason why you got the nickname Red is because you have red hair. And your mama called you Red. I know many people named Red. I have a cousin who goes by Red. That's right. Kristy has a cousin that goes by Red. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Kristy Lee Trupka. And my married last name is Tingler, and it's spelled Tingler. If you need help pronouncing it, throw a second G in there. You'll get it right. My ex-husband is from El Monte, California. I moved down there to get away from dope because I had a dope problem and found a new line of dope. I found glass. Yeah, I was on that for a few months while I was down there, and not long after I quit, I found out I was pregnant with my oldest child and didn't look back. Until I chose to trust the wrong person. But that is what it is. It'll never happen again. Not in this lifetime. However, somebody's been doing stuff to my coffee pot. I'd drink a cup of coffee and I'd start feeling real funny, like 3, maybe 4 sips in. And so I went and cleaned my coffee pot. It's Keurig, so I put a little bit of dish soap in it and ran it through a hot water cycle and drained it 3 times and drank a cup of coffee and felt fine. I didn't feel like I wasn't myself. I didn't feel funny. Which means somebody's been getting into my apartment, and mysteriously enough, nobody's cameras record anything. There's a camera pointed right at my front doorstep. There's a camera pointed right at my back door. But they caught nobody going into my apartment. Somebody went through. I went out and bought myself some security cameras. Somebody went through and laser lighted one of them, and the other one went out because it won't hook back up to the internet. And the internet was down, and I waited and I checked it again, and it still won't hook up to the internet. So, I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. They say I do all kinds of stupid shit, but guess what? How am I supposed to do stupid? I was accused of, I was sitting on my couch, passed out, with the door wide open and people could see me. But yet I was across town hurting somebody's little baby. How that happened, I'll never know. Or being in 12 different places at the same time doing stupid things to stupid people. But yet my door was wide open. I was asleep on my couch. There were people recording it. People would stop and take pictures of me asleep on the couch. I watched a girl come running in from out front saying, she's doing it again, she's doing it again. And I'm standing there looking through the window right behind her, and they're looking at me and they're going, she's doing what? A 3-month-old baby across town. Well, why the hell isn't anybody stopping that person? Why are they letting it happen? Then there's another lady. Well, what about what she did to my grandson? Okay, I have people that call me all the time and say that she did this and she did that. Well, how the hell did those people get your phone number? It's a private number. It's a cell phone, right? How are they supposed to get their hands on your phone number? That's an instant setup, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, my personal favorite was, come on outside, we have something for you. So I went and stood on the porch. There was somebody on the eve of my house, and you could hear bucket sounds. There were sawhorses out, and there were people walking up the sidewalk, and there were little kids watching and cheering, kill the chomo, kill the chomo. I mean, some of them were younger than 4 years old. They were right over there on the other side of my fence, on my front porch. They were in the parking lot. And they went 15 feet back from my back porch. And yet the goal was what? I have no clue what was in that bucket. But there was somebody up on the on the eve of my house. You could hear them. You could hear the bucket clanking. You see, I grew up picking mushrooms, so I know what a bucket sounds like, and I know when a bucket isn't empty. And that bucket wasn't empty. I picked mushrooms out of Black Rock. I did mushrooms in Sisters. I did mushrooms in, in a few other places with my dad. My dad is the one who taught me how to pick mushrooms. Yeah, we picked bolitas. If you found a matsutake, great. Pine mushrooms, chanterelles mostly. Put extra money in our pocket. When I was a kid, we peeled chitim. We picked moss, mushrooms. That is how my dad helped support us when they were on strike. Was doing the mushrooms and the chitim and the moss. Yeah. See, I used to live on Perry Road in Fall City. I lived on Oakdale Road on the outskirts of Fall City. I lived on Hillcrest. And Mike Steinford's mother can verify that one. She's also Travis Steinford's mother. Because she stayed at the house on Hillcrest. She stayed at the house that we lived in on Hill Street. She stayed at my apartment when I lived at 1412 Marion Street. I stayed at her apartment in Kaiser. I stayed in the one on Lancaster. I stayed in the two that she had up in Beaverton. I've even stayed a few nights at the house that when she first married Bernie Steinford Jr. On Hickory. I've stayed there. Right up the road from 7-Eleven on Pine, corner of Pine and Hickory. I think that's the name of the road. It's the one that goes straight down the center of Kaiser. It's not River Road. before the light. It becomes River Road after the light. So, yeah. We went to Job Corps. I was there first, and then she joined me later. And that's when she got pregnant with Mikey. Yes, I just called Mike Steinford Mikey. I call Travis Trav, or Travie. Have done so since he was an infant. Lost contact with the boys for a long time there until recently. I found them on Facebook and MySpace for a while there, and even Mikey remembered who I was. I hadn't seen Mike and Travis since they were 7, since Mike was like 8, something like that. I saw pictures of them when they were 11 and 12. And my son was, okay, here's the thing. My oldest son was born July 13th, 1998. Lisa's son was born November of 1989. So he was 7, 8. It was when they lived at the apartment on off of Uglow, down there in the dark brown apartments that my not dark brown, but brown apartments that my cousin Gary used to manage for a while there. Later on, he wasn't a manager then, but yeah, he didn't even live there at the time. But he retired from there, and he's doing well for himself, him and his wife. And that is my cousin Peggy. But yeah, I have friends and family in all walks of life, like I said. But the one thing I have to live with is a James Conrad Struble 24/7. If he's not down below, he's up above. He yells at me all the time. Whatever it is he's doing, there are people that know. There are people that don't give a shit. But my personal favorite is when I was 16, my mother worked for a place called Oregon Farm Bureau. And I've actually done a few mailings for them. And the guy that ran the place, his name was Klaus Hona. He had a ranch, if I remember correctly. It was in Prineville, Pendleton area. But it was out of town, and he paid for us to stay at a hotel locally. And I even got to explore his ranch with my brother. Yeah. And James claims that is the first time he ever laid eyes on me. 1 minute. The next minute, I'm his ex. Gross. I wouldn't touch his nasty. Blech. Gross. Yeah. But yeah, I have been in the area before. I've been to Prineville. I've been all over the place. I have a friend who used to live in Prineville. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's not who he's got me confused with. Because he says I'm a blonde. The only blonde I've ever known that has ever lived in Prineville is my friend Kim. Yeah. And she lived there for a short time. And then she got out of there. She stayed with my ex-husband and I for a short time in Independence when we lived on 12th Street. Yeah, I met my ex when I moved to California. July 13th, 1997, at 4:15 in the afternoon, I met my ex-husband. My son, my oldest child, was born July 13th, 1998, at 4:20 a.m. Yeah. Fun times, huh? But I have 4 kids, and I'm accused of not having any because I don't have any scars where you're supposed to have scars from having babies. Well, not everybody can have a baby naturally. Mine was 10 pounds, 3 ounces, and they had to cut him out because he wasn't coming out naturally. He got stuck. His ears. That's right. 14 and a quarter inch head, and his ears stopped him from coming out any further. Then he had 15 and a quarter inch shoulders, and the doctor said that was impossible. And he was a whole whopping 10 pounds, 3 ounces the day he was born. Doc said it was one of those cases where you come to the hospital expecting a newborn and you walk away with a 3-month-old. Then 2.5 years later, Dalton is born. He had a 14.5 inch head, so they said it would have torn my C-section scar wide open having him naturally, so I didn't get a VBAC, which is what I wanted. But I guess it is what it is. And keep in mind, Dalton was 8 days early, and he weighed 8 pounds, 15 ounces. So that's a half a pound a day that he could have gained, or a half a pound every 3 to 4 days. So he could have been just as big as Cole, if not bigger. And he was a 1/4 inch longer than Cole, though, at birth. He was 20.5 inches in length and a 14.5 inch head. Now, Cole had a 14.25 inch head, 15.25 inch shoulders, and he was 20.25 inches in length. So he was so chubby when he was born, you couldn't see his eyes, and they were blue. All 4 of my kids were born with blue eyes, and now they have some variation of brown, because their dad has brown eyes. And brown eyes tend to be more dominant in children. Although my daughter and my 2 youngest have hazel eyes. They light tan eyes. And my daughter has stars in her eyes. They're blue, green, and tan. My son does the same. And then my 2 oldest boys, I used to tell them they were so full of shit their eyes were brown. Yeah. Which was funny, because it would make them laugh, even at 5 and 6 years old. So, yeah, I guess it is what it is. I'm going to have a permanent James Conrad Struble who blames me for all of everything failing. His business, his relationships. He even, tells everybody he fell in love with me. So he wants me to die so he can give me the kiss of life. He says it's supposed to be some form of a Wiccan mating ritual where you kill the woman and then you bring her back to life, which I think is entertaining at best. I think he's been reading too many books, but that's just my opinion. Yeah. With that, I'm going to sign off. Bye.